What's up, everybody? This your boy Z, Reedie Z here. I'm here to discuss some news that released yesterday. Our Washington Commanders have an interview scheduled with Bears defensive back coach, passing game coordinator Al Harris for our open defensive coordinator position. We got the news yesterday that Brian Flores has reached an agreement with the Vikings to return there if he does not receive a head coaching job. So now we have shifted our focus to Al Harris, Dan Quinn's boy, and I'm here to break it down and talk about it. If Al Harris is the perfect candidate, and if he can fix everything that's wrong with this defense, stay tuned. Coming right up.
It's the Reedie Zee show. Reedie Zee show. It's the Reedie Zee show. Reedie Zee show. Reedie Zee show.
What's up? What's up, y'all? I am back. This is Z, and I'm here, like I mentioned in the intro, here to talk about it. Al Harris is interviewing for our defensive coordinator position. This is a guy who a lot of the fans, according to the notion out there, a lot of the fans have been wanting. I've seen his name floating around when DQ first got the job 2 years ago, and he ended up bringing in Joe Witt. There was a lot of people calling for us to bring in Al Harris. At the time he was with the Cowboys. Now he is with the Bears, who actually led the league last year in led the league this year in interceptions. So, his defensive unit has been productive. And you know what I mean? I'm here to just kind of talk about it. So first up, make sure y'all like, share, subscribe, and Reading Z on all platforms. Also, make sure if you want to support the channel, you can do so by super chats, or you can, send a donation to our Cash App, scrolling there at the bottom, Reading Z, $ Reading Z. So, first and foremost, when my top candidate for defensive coordinator, I was saying, pretty much last week that I wanted it to be Brian Flores. If he became available and was open to, do a lateral move and be a defensive coordinator again, I preferred us to, bring him in, interview him, don't let him leave the building, throw a bag at him, make him a deal that he could not resist. His name is still in the hat for a few head coaching positions. One of the notable ones was the Steelers, where he served there as a defensive coordinator just a couple of years ago. So definitely, was high on my list. But you move along, and you had other names in the mix like Raheem Morris, who's still out there. Jeff Ulbrich was a name that circulated, but he's being retained by the Falcons. And then you still have Carl Scott, who's getting a lot of buzz. Carl Scott is the young guy out of Seattle. He's on the Seattle staff. And, as we know, Seattle defense is, it's one of the best, if not the best, in the league right now. What Mike McDonald was able to do, there with that team and turn things around. So pulling anybody from that staff would certainly probably be a plus. So here we are. We sitting at Al Harris. All right, Al Harris is a guy who, a former player. He has a pretty good resume. Coming dating back to when he played, he was able. He started out with the Packers. He played with the Eagles. He played with the Dolphins. He's a two-time Pro Bowler, Super Bowl champion with the Packers. And he was pretty much known, for his physical and aggressive man coverage. He kind of slowly transitioned into coaching shortly after his retirement. And thus far, everybody pretty much loves him. He's a player's guy. They're excited about him, excited for what he does there. And he's pretty much he's big on teaching toughness, ball skills, and accountability. To kind of break it down, he was with Dallas. Dallas from 2020 to 2022. He was a part of Dan Quinn's staff in Dallas. He helped. He was on that staff that turned Trayvon Diggs around, and he was able to get 11 interceptions in the season. Continue to emphasize the aggressive coverage and takeaways. That's one of the key things that he focuses on. That's something that, here in Washington, we know we lack, being aggressive, creating takeaways. One of the biggest things Joe Witt talked about during his time was that we were going to create all these turnovers. We was going to be aggressive. We was going to do all this stuff, and necessarily didn't work out. So pretty much what I see that, getting another guy that actually has the proven background, to be able to, have guys and coach guys up to be able to do that will only be a plus. Even with the Bears, as far as the DB coach / pass game coordinator, he was given a little bit more of a role. He was heavily involved in the defense, the pass defense design. He pretty much was also involved in, coverages and coverage rules and route concepts. And he's also, pretty much responsible for the secondary structure. And right now, the Bears are top of the league in interceptions. So that, again, talks about the takeaways, the things that he's been able to get his players to do, go out there and implement something totally will be missing here in Washington. So only good things there. He's pretty much not just a position coach anymore. He's totally involved in the scheme. So that opens up the door to allow him to be pretty, credible for a defensive coordinator position. Now, has he ever called plays? That's the big question out there. But I think, if depending on what type of support that, what type of staff he will be able to build, will determine how strong of a candidate he is and how well he can do. So, typically when you have the younger guys, they tend to go out and get proven assistance and, support to be able to help them through certain processes. So, pretty much what I think why this interview makes a lot of sense for Washington. Last year we gave up too many explosive plays. We had a lot of breakdowns in communication. There was a lot of inconsistent corner play. As we saw throughout the year, Marshawn Lattimore continued to have his ups and downs, despite battling with, some injury later on. But, he was basically getting cooked. We saw Mikey get cooked. Amos did pretty solid, but he ended up going down with an injury that, ended his season and pretty much shut him down. And we didn't really create a lot of turnovers. So, Al Harris's background directly addresses this. So this is key. This is big. Also, as far as like player development, with our young core, you think about Amos, you think about Mikey, you think about Noah, who is still a young guy. Noah is like 26 years old. Somebody who was on the trading block, rumored to be on the trading block right around the time the season started. Because basically right after training camp, there was some, talks that he could be moved, but the team did not move him. And I feel like he played some solid downs for us. I feel like he's a candidate for someone you would definitely want to bring back as a depth guy, if he's willing to, because he could be, open to go pursue something else where he can gain some more opportunity. But I'm actually hoping that more opportunity comes from him here. We look at that room last year. We had Lattimore, we had Amos, we had Jones. You got Mikey. On the back end, Hamilton ended up playing towards the end of the season. Just to name a few guys. So, and of course, I was in that mix. So, I'm sure, Lattimore's not going to be here. Jones probably won't be back. So you definitely, I would want to see, Amos, Noah, Mikey, back as far as, that three, and then pretty much add on some extra guys to kind of, fill everything out. So hopefully, hopefully we'll see what we can do in free agency there. but I think Al Hurst immediately helps this secondary. We saw instances where we had poor self safety play coming from Quan Martin, and Will Hurst was down this year. He was injured and things of that nature. So, I mean, we struggled there. Reeves came in, and Reeves is a guy who he's going to give you his all. He's going to be aggressive. He comes up and tackle anybody. Has a lot of heart. But there was a couple of times where in coverage, it's a little suspect. And I mean, that's Reeves. We know that to be what it is. But I mean, at the end of the day, I think that having somebody again that's played in this league, played not so long ago, still pretty accustomed to what's going on, out here. I think it only helps. It only helps. So yeah, as far as development, we have young DB talent. They definitely need coaching more to kind of dig deeper and kind of pull more out of them, get them to reach their full potential. And he's had success in the past with developing corners. Um, what I mean? So we'll see. But Harris will definitely bring physicality, confidence, accountability. What I mean? He has to compete every snap mentality. This is a lot, information that's going around about him as far as what he is and what he represents. So with bringing this type of attitude and mentality to this atrocious of a secondary, and defense as a whole, again, I think would be solid. Solid. Now, of course, you do have your concerns, as I stated. He has not called plays at the NFL level. What I mean? Mostly of his coaching tenure thus far has been focused simply on DBs in the secondary. So it's like, what could you offer overall for a defense? That's a lot of questions around that. What I mean? So basically, maybe if we pair him with more experienced coaches as far as like on the D line and with the linebackers, that could help. What I mean? So it all depends. But if you look at other teams and around the league, what they've been able to do. I mean, D'Amico Ryan, he's a head coach, but what I mean, you're looking at that situation where he panned out. Aaron Glenn, Gerard Mayo, and then Antonio Pierce. All former players who pretty much turned leadership and culture into results. So like you asked that question, do former players connect better with players in today's locker room? That's a big question, and I side on this. I think for me, I would rather learn from somebody who's experienced or who's done it. What I'm doing more recent than actually from an OG or not. And I again, I'm not. It's not to knock any OGs, but sometimes you're a lot more relatable. And the message can be perceived. Whatever message has been set across can be perceived better, and sounded clear, and you're able to kind of mesh all together. So again, these are good things that's going on. That fits and supports Al Harris signing. What I mean? Pretty much, you ask the question. Are we tired of DQ trying to go with guys that he's familiar with? Yeah, I guess you can argue that. What I mean? We saw him go the familiar route with Joe Witt. Um, we saw him bring in other guys that were in Dallas with him and things of that nature. We saw interviews come across with a lot of guys that he's familiar with. And sometimes, that can either make or break you. DQ pretty much is in a situation where this year he has to win, or his job is pretty much on the line, if not gone. So offensively, he chose to stay in house and promoted Blau, which hopefully pans out. But I've been hearing that he would rather go with somebody else that he can help push forward. He's big on advancement for his staff. He's big on putting them in situations to succeed and move forward. So I personally think that this fits what DQ has done. and what he will do. And I think, honestly, bearing any setbacks, Al Harris will likely and highly be our next defensive coordinator. You know what I mean? So make sure y'all, hop in the comments and let us know how you feeling. Would you be excited to have him here? Is it too risky? Do former players make better defensive coaches? What I mean, who else out there? Who else should be our top target? That's a lot of questions to ask yourself. But again, like I said, you want to consider the key points that he was successful as a player. He's a Super Bowl champion. Players love him today. What I mean, he's been proven to be able to get things turned around for certain players and get the most potential out of them and things of that nature. So as far as development, as far as performance, as far as takeaways and aggressiveness, he's been able to get that out of secondary. So can he get that out of a full defense? Can he get that out of a full team? The question still remains, but what I mean, we'll see how this pans out. But I think that the Commanders should, if the opportunity is there, hire Al Harris to be our next defensive coordinator, bearing any other setbacks. So, and also, whether or not he lands the job, or whether or not he lands this job, the interview was telling us one thing, that we are definitely serious about fixing the defense the right way, with leadership, accountability, development. The days of the patchwork defense might finally be over. So we'll see, So if you want to, make sure you tune into other videos from Reedie Zee. Make sure you tune into our collab show with Juan Gotti from Juan Gotti Talking Sports, Ball in the Burgundy podcast. I got John over there. And along with my brother Reedie, we are the Burgundy Breakdown. So make sure y'all tap in and stay locked in on what we got going on. And we record every Wednesday over there. And just stay tuned for more and more videos just like this. And if you did like this video, please share it with with a friend or another friend and a friend. Tell a friend. Share it with another Commanders fans. We're on the road to 2,000, so greatly appreciate all your support thus far and the support to come. And if you would like to be a blessing to our channel, you can simply, do so via super chats, or as well, we have our Cash App scrolling across the screen, $ Reedie Z. Until next time, this is your boy Z signing over and out, and I will see you guys soon.
Reedie Zee shout.